My NDE was on August 22nd, 2009. I was 34 years old. I woke up with a tremendous amount of pain, excruciating pain, and I was burning up with a fever of 106 degrees, and we didn't know what was going on. A family member took me to the hospital, and they were running tests and trying to figure out what was happening. I remember when I was in for my CT scan, they were trying to adjust my IV. I could feel myself detaching. I could feel myself coming out. And I would drift out almost the way you see a balloon start to drift away into the sky. But that pain kept pulling me back in. And after my CT scan, they brought me out into an area in the emergency room where we were just waiting for what was next. And that's when everything started happening, when I really started dying at that point. I started convulsing, and I could feel the veins on my head popping out. The pressure in my head and in my body was tremendous. The pain was excruciating. My fever was high, so I was burning up, but I was also freezing cold all at the same time. And I remember convulsing with my eyes closed, and I had the thought of, I don't know how much more of this I can take. I don't think I can take any more of this pain. It was at that moment that I completely disconnected from everything that was external and outside of me. The people that were around me, the medical staff, the machines that I was hooked up to at that point. I had no connection to it. I lost the knowing that it was even there. And I was still experiencing some of the pain, but not to the same degree as I had been. And I started doing internal scan of my body. It felt like I was watching a movie. I could see the blood pumping. I could see my cells. I could see my internal organs. And it felt very factual. I didn't really have any emotion attached to it. And then I had that awareness of, I'm dying. This is what it feels like. And at that moment, I popped out of my body. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ceiling looking down at myself and everyone around me. And I could see that there was no life left in my body. I knew that that was me, but I didn't see me there anymore. My soul was no longer a part of that shell of a body that I saw on the hospital gurney. And as I was taking all of that in, I started to very gently, very slowly start floating up and backwards. And everything that I was looking at started to become smaller. I felt that I was looking down at the hospital, and I saw these little balls of energy buzzing all around. Those were souls that I was seeing, and they were all connected by this very thin, iridescent line. The way that a spider web looks if you catch it just right in the sunlight. That's what it looked like, which I now realize is oneness and the way that we are all connected. And I remember the way that these souls were buzzing around didn't make sense to me, because I thought, why are they all running around like that? I didn't understand why they were all so busy. And as I continued to float backwards, I was moving a little faster at this point. It was happening very quickly now, where I felt like I was in this void or in outer space. It didn't feel scary, but it was black. Then I immediately felt myself go into the tunnel. And it was very black, very dark in the tunnel. I wasn't scared at all. I was moving very fast. It was exciting and it felt exhilarating. The tunnel ride was very quick, and I popped right out of the tunnel, and I was immediately in the white light. The light was so bright and beautiful and powerful that it took me a minute to adjust and understand what was going on there too. As soon as I started to settle into it, I understood that it was heaven. I started to feel the light more and feel the energy of what that was. And I immediately felt this overwhelming sense of unconditional love. Love like I have never felt before. No matter what I had been through in my life, no matter what I had done, it was just complete love for me. I was bathing in it. It was wrapped around me, and it made me feel valued, appreciated, and accepted. The next thing I felt was an overwhelming sense of peace, that everything was okay and that everything was right, that all was well. I was getting a healing. I started to notice all the areas in my soul or in my energetic space where there were wounds or there were holes, and all of those areas were starting to get filled in, and they were getting filled in with love. I was being replenished, and it was the best feeling. It just made me feel like this is who I am. This is who I'm supposed to be. This is what my soul is all about. After I was bathing in the light for a while and really soaking that up and starting to feel really good, I did start to notice what I think were other souls coming in around me. It felt like a crowd coming toward me. It felt like a friendly crowd. I wasn't scared or intimidated, but I didn't have enough time to understand exactly what that was, because at that moment I heard that inaudible voice say to me, "You need to go back." And that's not what I wanted to hear. No, I don't want to go. Please don't make me go back. Because it was so beautiful there. And then I heard the voice again, and I get emotional about it even now. I heard the voice again. It said, "You need to go back." And it was loving, but it was a firm voice letting me know that this is not a negotiation. It was time to go back. And I persisted with the protesting. I said, "No, please don't make me go back." And right at that moment, I felt almost like I was nudged back into the tunnel. And I went backwards very fast into the tunnel, very quickly back into my body. And I entered my body through the top of my head, and it felt like I was being sucked back into my body. And I felt the pain returning, but it was very quick. It was just enough for me to know I'm back in this world. And then I don't remember anything for several hours after that. When I woke up in pre-op, this was on a weekend, and it was very late at night. I think it was at about 9 or 10 p.m. That part of the hospital was very empty. I knew that I had died. I knew that I had gone into this beautiful white light that loved me. But when I opened my eyes, I was receiving last rites. And I thought, this is odd. And it didn't make sense to me. And I was also trying to understand what was going on around me. I was trying to figure out what the physical world was about, because it was almost like I had lost the memory of what these machines were and what all these people were doing. But I wasn't able to communicate verbally at that point. But as I was receiving last rites, I had all these people around me. And the way people look at you when they think you're going to die, I've never been looked at like that before in my life. Family members and my doctor, my surgeon, I remember especially, the look that they get in their eyes, I've never seen that before. And I remember feeling their pain and concern, and I wanted to say, "What are you guys worried about? If I was supposed to die, I would have been dead before. I wouldn't have been sent back." But I wasn't able to communicate that at that time. And the next morning when I woke up, my fever had been 106, but it went down to 94 degrees, which is very dangerous. The doctor explained to me that I had a kidney stone that had become lodged in my ureter, and it was stuck. And so everything, all of the toxins that were meant to filter out were going back into my bloodstream. My entire blood supply had become infected, and I had gone into septic shock. They were saying the next 24 hours were critical. We needed to watch what was going on with my internal organs. And again, I just wanted to say, everything's fine. I'm going to be fine. I know that, or I wouldn't be back here. I was still very sick though. I was still having a lot of physical pain and a lot of physical problems. But I was having this dance with myself where I was kind of floating out and then I would float back in. It was almost like I was trying to work my way back into my body fully. And I was uncomfortable with everything around me that was man-made. The machines that I was hooked up to, the supplies that were there in the hospital. And the only thing that felt okay to me at that point were the people that were around me. I could identify with other souls. And I was very fortunate to have a big window in the hospital room that I was in that had beautiful trees outside of it. And I spent a lot of time just staring at those trees because that was what I was truly connecting with. That nature is what felt the most like that white light to me. I was recalling what had happened, and I knew that it was very real. And I tried to talk to a couple of people about it, 2 people that I was very close to, and they rejected it. I think it's because when your family or someone that loves you watches you die, that's very traumatic for them. And then they see you recovering and see you starting to feel better. I don't think that they wanted to hear about death, and they didn't want to hear about the white light. We are in a dark time in the world right now. It's very challenging. There are a lot of traumatic events that are taking place, and it feels like we're going to be stuck in this place for a long time, but I don't see it that way. I see it as we need to go through this chaos in order to hit that reset button. I see this as we're coming out of it. It's just going to take some time. And the more you can go inward when you feel those triggers from the outside world, the more you can heal and get into a space of love and get into a space of light. And that ripples outward. And the way that all of us can make a difference in the world is just by being yourself, exactly where you are today. Do your healing work and do everything you can to get back to your true self. Where you are today is exactly where you're supposed to be, and you are in your soul purpose, exactly where you're supposed to be today. And I could look back at my life 5 years ago or before my NDE, and although I'm in a much different space now, I look back and I know I was in my soul purpose then because I needed to go through that to get to where I am today. And so offering yourself the love and acceptance every day, honoring where you're at, and continuing to learn and continuing to grow and continuing to love, that's how you can make a difference in this world.